Hi guys, this is Jana. I just wanted to do a quick follow-up on our accessible CBN syllabuses. And we've got some great work going on in the college in previous semesters, a lot of great participation from folks. And I just wanted to follow up and go over a few quick tips, a couple of things that I've noticed in some of the documents that people have been producing. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, I always think it's a good idea to do a quick recap of what it is we're doing and who our target audience is. So, of course, we are creating accessible documents, and for our purposes, accessibility means that we are creating documents that can be read by a screen reading device, as well as producing a document that has readability for our sighted students. We want something that's going to be as easy as possible for them to understand. And so the idea is always accessibility first. So if we make a document that is accessible, then that usually cuts down on any special accommodations we have to do. And again, it's just considering accessibility as a whole and helping a larger number of students. So to begin with, we did have a couple questions about modifying styles. A few people that were starting to use the styles pane and felt like they were really locked in to some of those preset styles. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that you don't have to just accept that style the way it is. You can click in and select to modify the style. And as you see here, you have the option to change that font, change the font size, the style on it, and go ahead and save that. And really, in the long run, there might be some work up front to save those the way you want them, but then it should be really quick and easy for any future document that you create, and it should help you also create some consistency for your courses, which I think is really nice. With that being said, though, there are definitely some guidelines in text styling. So, and this will be for both our sighted students and our students using reading devices. So the first thing to keep in mind is that we want a 12-point font minimum. And really, if you're doing any content in Blackboard, I recommend that you do a 14 font because it just really it helps with the readability. Another thing to keep in mind is with your CBN syllabus is do not adjust your margins. Keep those as the preset margins. So I know some folks will really try to cut down on the number of pages that their syllabus is, and I respect that need, but really right now accessibility is more important. So keep the font size at 12 point and keep those margins the way they are, in an original document. For our screen reading devices, we need to make sure that we're using bold and italics from the styles pane. And I know that that's kind of counterintuitive for everyone. We're used to using the formatting toolbar to make those kind of changes. But if that's something that you think students using a screen reader should be able to recognize, let's say you've put in bold that you will not accept late submissions. You also want someone using the screen reader to know that you are emphasizing that sentence, so it's important to use the styles pane to make those kinds of revisions. And you also want to avoid doing any underlining in your document because we really want to save underlining for hyperlinks. This is again for our sighted students and helping with that visual communication. So if we get students to recognize that we only use underlining for hyperlinks, they should be able to easily identify where in your document you've got a hyperlink to something. Another thing that we've talked about in accessibility a lot is using sans serif fonts. And so I've tried to use an example here. This is an attendance statement from a syllabus. And so you can see with a sans serif font, it's fairly easy to read that. It's just more inviting, whereas in comparison, this is a serif font. You can see it's got kind of the little curls at the end of all the letters. And so this is the same font size as the previous example, but you can see it's not as inviting, it's not as easy to read. So we really want to avoid serif fonts in favor of those sans serif options. So another thing to touch on is the descriptive hyperlinks. So what that means is we want to avoid any text that says click here, read more, start now. So this is for, really this is just good advice for everyone, for students using screen readers, but also for sighted students as well. The idea is that with the descriptive hyperlink, students should know where they're being directed. They should know what they're about to go look at. So students with screen reading devices can actually navigate a page just by hyperlink. So that's a big reason why it's important not to use link text like click here or read more, because it's completely out of context for them. But I also just think it's nice for anyone to know, what they can expect on that web page once they hit that link. Nobody likes wasting their time clicking on a link that takes them to something that's irrelevant. So as you can see in this example on the academic integrity statement, it's pretty clear that when you click those hyperlinks, you're either going to go to the academic honor code or the student handbook information. So again, it helps you save time and gets you exactly what you're looking for. So onto tables. We have several tips on tables here today. The first is that we don't want to use complex tables. And so complex tables use merged or split cells. And so a screen reader really has a tough time handling that. So here's an example that we'll often see in a course syllabus where a faculty member will put their schedule. And so this is really difficult to read through. And honestly, I think that we can make this much easier for all students, again, improving that accessibility, because if you put yourself in a student position, they really probably just want to know when your office hours are, and that's what you're required to have in your syllabus. So, a brief bulleted list of your office hours, really can cut down on what you're having to add as a table in your syllabus, and can really help with that. And this is another example of not using a table if you don't need it, right? So like in this example, I would probably take some of that content from the first cell in the maximum points column and use that as like a lead-in sentence, and then do a bulleted list with colons to combine information from that first column and the second column, and then the grading scale could be its own separate thing. So there's really not much of a need to have this content in a table, and within this table it's obviously got some merged cells, which is complicated for a screen reader. Another thing to keep in mind with tables is to avoid using tables for design purposes. We will see this a lot in faculty CVs, and it looks nice a lot of the time to have a table and have it organized with the header on the left and your content on the right. But it's really bad for accessibility. You can make those documents accessible, but it takes a lot of manual work because you have to go in and set the reading order. So if you have a few paragraphs of text under one of those tables, it really has a tough time with that. So you end up having to spend a lot of time to make those adjustments, when really if you just chose a different format, you could probably achieve the same thing and not have to spend as much time making your document accessible. So another quick tip on tables is to avoid using tabs to create content that should be in a table. So as you can see here, so if you were using a screen reader to read this, it would actually read out each one of the tabs for each line of this course schedule. So we want to avoid that. This is the type of content that should be in a table. All right, and that concludes our quick tips. So if you have any questions or need any help with anything, please feel free to contact me and I'm happy to help.